Let's talk about Games Workshop's glazes. Sorry, I mean contrast paints. GW recently scrapped their glaze range. They replaced it with their contrast paints. They rebranded these, increased the price by £2 and tried to resell them as a newbie friendly paint. What actually happened though was they taught newbies how to use glazes. They made a glaze, now called contrast paints, easily understandable to a newbie painter. Now all these expert painters who tried using these and liked them must have known they were just using a glaze. They would have known GW were basically introducing newbies to a glaze. Some people said that, some people didn't. But that's what they did. That's a glaze, that's a glaze. Only this one's called a contrast paint, it costs £4.70, and this one used to cost less than £2.50. Well, about £2.50, something like that. I can't remember it offhand. Anyhow, glazes will typically be painted over a one colour model. Although, to be honest, the more work you put in, the better it looks. This is a basic idea, a basic example. You put the glaze over that, or yellow glaze, it would go orange, like that. And it would settle in the grooves. And then generally, it wouldn't look yellow anymore, because yellow glazes are crap. But it would make all these grooves that might be a bright yellow into a more darker orange, which would do the job of a shade without really darkening everything up. It'd also make the yellow pop, make it brighter usually. At least that's what this stuff was supposed to do. But it didn't, it just did the same thing as that did, because I used contrast on this just as an experiment and it did exactly what I was expecting it to do. It made it orange. Now, if you were to use any other colour, usually people start by recommending you paint a model grey, and then you put the contrast paint on, and the more you put on it the darker the colours go. That is how glazes work. You put a glaze over white, then you'll have a really pronounced effect, because it'll settle, say, a black glaze over white. The black would settle in the grooves, making all the grooves black, and everything else would go grey. And the more you put on, the darker the grey would go. The grooved areas would always be black, but the surface areas would go from being grey to being black. And you build it up in layers. Now, you don't have to buy GW paints to do that, because glazes are an old technique. They've been around for years. Basically, right, you take your water, you take your brush, you dip it in some paint, you do your mud things, and then you wash your brush out. What you don't do is, you don't go to a completely different colour and do it and wash your brush out, you just stick with the one colour. Your water slowly changes colour, as you know, to the colour you've been using. It is almost a glaze at this point. You then take a little jam jar or something similar and you put some of that dirty water in that jam jar. Then, if you want to speed up drying time, use a bit of thinners, but you don't want to do that with a glaze. Use flow improver, that retards it a little bit, and it also acts as a kind of a medium. It kind of like keeps the paint bound together. So if you put a few drops of this on, it works a lot better as a glaze. So now you've got water and you've got a 200ml bottle of flow improver by Vallejo, and you could use drying retardant. I've got a glaze here and a drying retardant somewhere here, but this stuff is quite thick. You know, you don't even check, it's like a gloop. So it's not really good for glazes. But flow improver is much better, so you can hear it. Put a few drops of flow improver in it and give it a shake, and you've got yourself a glaze of the exact colour you want to use. Now, if I was to take this model here, something I made earlier, and just show you the wings. Now, these wings were originally all blue. I painted them, I think it was McCrag blue. Yeah, that blue. And they were just plain blue. I don't have a lighter shade of blue that matches the McCrag blue. So the fact that these two blues work together, right, isn't a coincidence. I had to make that work. What I did is I dry brushed over the blue with grey and white in order to make it, you know, more, well, not for you to see each feather. Now that would look really odd if I'd left it like that. But I just mixed up some glaze for myself using the Crag Blue as the base, and a bit of flow improver to help, you know, maintain the consistency, and retard the drying time just a little bit, and then use water to top it up. I could make myself gallons of that stuff that way. Then what I did is I went back to the Crag paint, and if I thought that water wasn't strong enough blue, I'd add a bit more blue paint to my thing until it was the strong strength I want. I just wipe it on the side here just to see how transparent it was compared to what I needed it to be. And I added water or paint until I got it to the transparency I was after. And then I just took the blue and the white and I just poured it over there like that. Actually, I did it that way, this direction, so it catches underneath the wings. It tinted all the white bits and all the grey bits with Crag Blue. Made the white bits match the dark blue. Now, shades usually work by settling in grooves, but they're also good at tinting lighter colours, the colours you want them to be. So when you dry brush it that way, the model, all the feathers suddenly start working. And if it doesn't work, if it's still a bit too bright, you wait a little bit longer, let it dry, and do it again. You apply it in multiple layers, a bit like shading does, shading and everything else. That way, you will eventually get it to the colour you want, because it'll tint everything that blue. I did the same with the purple. I made the purple there, right? Basically, I did it over the blue, but I dry brushed lots of grey on it, a lot of grey on it, and then I used Dulce Violet, which is I put in little dropper bottles, as you can see. GW's Dulce Violet because it's a really bright, rich purple, and I stained the grey the colour I wanted it, and I kept on adding it until it went a really rich purple. Then I dry brushed it grey again. Then I put one more coat of Dulce Violet over the top. But I could have done the same thing. I mean, it was actually watered down by then. Otherwise it would have stained all the grey completely purple. But it's basically, it was another glaze, and only this time I used Dulce Violet as the base of it. And I put it over it again, so all them grey areas took on a bit of a purple tint. And it worked, it made the wings look brilliant. So you see, you can make glazes out of base colours, you know. I can make a corn red glaze if I wanted to. I actually prefer using, where is it? It's always the last one you look at, you notice that. Anyway, I've got a red shade. Here it is, red tone from Army Painter. Now, if you're looking for really good shades, Army Painter produce the best ones. I'm going to tell you now, throw in a free tip for you. That is nothing like that crimson red, I think it is. 1 second, I'll see if I can find it. Here it is. It's Caribou Crimson. That and that is nothing like each other. They're not a replacement for each other. This one will settle in the grooves of a model just like a wash, right? But it'll do it much darker, more natural and matte. A lot of GW paints are made ink based and therefore shiny, so you don't want to put too much of that on. But with these ones, putting too much on isn't a problem. That's why these ones are better. But there's still a place for GW ones because they're really rich colours. Now, I don't know of a replacement for flesh wash on the GW side. Army Painter flesh wash produces some fantastic effects. I'd show you what on my Mutilith Beast, but it's downstairs. But that there, it's like God to anybody making a face on a model. Natural looking human face, that is. Blue tone, no, not green tone. Dark tone. This is null oil basically. Again, it doesn't dry shiny, it dries matte, so it's perfect. If you want it to shine, you could put, you know, gloss varnish over it if you want, and it'll shine then. but it won't ruin the model and produce shiny shadows. It's very good, much better than null oil. Not mid browns. Soft tone and I think strong tone's out. Okay, soft tone. Army Painter soft tone. That's basically sepia. In GW sepia, or whatever the GW calls sepia. Exactly the same thing. Again, it dries matte and therefore produces a more natural effect. This strong tone, that is Averick's Earthshade. Exactly the same job, but this does a better job on it. Now, just to ram that point home, here's a model I'm currently painting. I've just basically used this to dab all the brown and silvery areas to make it look a bit rusty in some places. Not bright rust though, but like the metal's scraped off. I went heavily on it because it's an art vehicle and I want it to look grunged up. And I'm still painting all the blacks and other things on, obviously. And then I took the strong tone and I did every single rivet like that. Not null oil, you know, the dark tone, but you know, strong tone. I use strong tone to do that. Although to be honest, you should use light tone if you're doing it on yellow, so you don't get the pronounced effect. But when you're looking at something at 2 feet away, the detail disappears if you're subtle about it. And to be honest, if you're going to do glazing, not being subtle is a good idea. You know, you go too far light, and then when you put the shade on, it brings it back down again. Who said that? Next Level Painting said that. Right, there's some good tips out there from various sites. But anyway, it brings it back again when you put the glaze back on it. But I'm still painting this, but it's done exactly what I wanted it to do. It's made all the little detail pop out, and you haven't got that kind of in your face yellow effect like that going on anymore. The detail, you can see the detail difference. But that there is strong tone. Once I put all the detail on, I'm going to take dark tone and I'm going to put some oil, an oil effect on the model, which probably means I'll have to go and get some gloss varnish. I've actually got a big tub somewhere. This is Vallejo gloss, works quite well, and just paint that over the dried dark tone to make it shiny. GWs already go shiny if you put too much on, so you could just use that. But anyway, paint wise, every brand of paint has some horrible paints in the mix. GW does, Vallejo does, Army Painter does, they all do. So you've got to find which ones are good for you, which ones are. But I'll just tell you a story here about my recent experiment. First of all, not Phoenix Flames. Here we go. I got this to try Phoenix Flames. Right, that's golden yellow. I put that on Orcs. 5 coats. Didn't even touch it. I actually started out with black, and then I painted brown, then I painted yellow, and the yellow took so many coats the detail was starting to go. This is why I've got to strip these models and start again, because these are old models. And I thought this was going to be useless paint, but all of these ones here were painted in the yellow in exactly the same way. These ones though only took 2 coats. The difference was this thing. This Vallejo Game Colour golden yellow through an airbrush, wonderful results. It was surprising, it made a massive difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, strip these, use that through an airbrush to get the thing. When you're actually painting yellow, you start black and work your way to yellow, because if you're gonna get any yellow seeping into the black, it's easier to touch up the black than to touch up the yellow. That's why with yellow you start out with a dark colour and work your way to the yellow instead of the other way around. Because when the yellow leaks everywhere and goes all over the model, and it will occasionally, black paint, dead easy to cover up the yellow with, whereas yellow is harder to cover up the black with. But anyway, regarding paints, glazes and everything else, you can buy the paints if you like, but back in the day when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was no glazes, there was no contrast paints, there was no shades. You had to make it up yourself, and it's not only cheaper but it's easier, and you get a much more accurate colour match when you're using the paint you need to make the shade you need. For instance, you can make up your own red glaze, put a little bit of black on it to darken it up if you want, get it exactly as you want it to be. You can rub it on the surface a bit to see how it works and do it like I made this. This is basically Vallejo gold and yellow in paint thinners with a touch of flow improver. Says, and just a touch though, and basically it's an airbrush colour now, and I painted all of them with the same paint. If I'd just bunged that straight in the airbrush, it would have bunged it up, but that went on with 2 coats. This 5 coats later directly didn't even touch the model, it still left the brown showing through in places. So sometimes mixing the paint yourself and having the facilities and the pots to do it with pays dividends. It can also save you a ton of money when you're not buying every single contrast paint in the book, when you know how contrast paints are made. But remember, these little things here that are listed for airbrushes, very useful when you're not using airbrushes. So as a bit of paint retardant when you're not necessarily have to thinning it down. If you're having a base coat like corn red and you want to thin that down, Vallejo medium retarder, that'll do it without thinning it down too much. If you stick glazing, that'll make it more watery and thin it down. But the paint retarder will stop it drying so fast. If you're in hot day like today, it's summer in the UK, so paint dries very quickly. Then bit of retarder, very useful. I don't use a wet palette, I use this palette. Old school. Does the same job as a wet palette, except for I can't seal it up and put it away and come back to it. Usually if I come back to something, I'm painting a different model. Or if I am painting the same model, I'm using different paints, because I do it in phases. I might paint all the blacks on that, for instance, so any black on there wouldn't get used on that when I come back because it's already done. That kind of effect. So I prefer using palettes. But anyway, now you know, contrast paints and glazes, one and the same thing. You can make your own if you want. The professional paint is a bit brighter and obviously a bit better, but sometimes you don't need it better, you just need it to tint a blue or a grey, the colour you need it to be, in which case matching the colour is important, and if you want a McCrag wash you'd be hard pressed to find one, so you make it yourself. Anyway, just wanted to leave you those tips. See you in the next video.